All right, we're good to go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lexington Destination Imagination Team Manager Training. My name is Gil Benghiat. I've been involved in this program for about 15 years. The first 10, I was a team manager like you. The very first year I joined, I managed a team. And I've also I've had a variety of roles, including the town coordinator slash town director. But this year I'm doing the training and we're recording it for future years. And I think what we'll do is after I get through the introduction, I'll take 1 or 2 questions per slide, and then we'll have a longer Q&A at the end. All right, so this is what we're going to be covering tonight. You could read through it on your own, but it's going to be an introduction to DI, different tips and techniques, and really kind of how to get started, and also a guide on where information is. So what's DI? DI in a nutshell. Well, it stands for Destination Imagination. It's a creative problem-solving program. I think it's really great for the kids. They learn a lot. They learn about teamwork. They learn about project management, time management, and in a very unique environment, one where the kids are in charge. But as a coach or a team manager, you're responsible for getting this group organized and getting them moving forward. So I think from a coach's point of view, what's DI in a nutshell? Well, there's a tournament in March. So that's really the big deadline. It all leads up to this tournament in March. And what do you do at the tournament? There's really 2 things. One is your team presents a solution to a team challenge. We'll talk more about what are those team challenges, but they're some kind of something they work on during your meetings. The presentation is usually limited to 8 minutes. The max cost is about $150. That's the cost of the material that they could bring on stage. And the team spends their time preparing. So most of the time in the meetings will be focused on a solution for the team challenge. They'll also solve an instant challenge. And an instant challenge is something that is read to the team and they have to solve it on the spot. And at the very end, I'll give an example of one of those. Just a little logistical tip. As a new manager, I was kind of surprised that I had to fill out all this paperwork for the tournament. You have paperwork to do. So once you pick your challenge, see what the paperwork is and know what that is. And also you could get clarifications on the challenges. There's a procedure for that. So let me just scan the invite list here, the attendee list. And if anybody has a question, raise your hand and I will unmute you. Okay, so far, so good. All right, so I'll move on here. So a little more about getting started, and that this is, at least in Lexington, the program is 100% driven by volunteers. So, and also it's in the home. So we have a Lexington Continuing Education does a lot of our logistics for us, but since it's a school-run activity in someone's home, we made an agreement that 2 adults have to be present at all time, which is why each team needs 2 adult managers. There's this training, and then these managers, there's more training available from the Massachusetts level of DI, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we go over resources. The other thing the team needs to do in order to go to the training and to go to the tournament is you need to provide an appraiser. And that's really a volunteer at the tournament. They'll probably appraise another problem, but there's other roles too. And the time commitment for that is not quite a day of training and then 1 day at the tournament. So really, in order to get started and to participate, 3 adults need to commit for this. And for the appraiser, it really has to be someone who's 18 or older, or someone in high school. I think it's either junior or senior definitely a senior who's done DI before. So this is really a great part of Destination Imagination, and I think something that makes it unique for all other programs, and that's every part of the solution that the team brings with them to the tournament has to come from the team. So that's every single idea is from the team, from the kids. So and this it's one of the strengths of the program, and it's also something the program takes very seriously. So inside this thing called the roadmap, which we'll talk about, is this thing called the interference contract. What you should do is print it out and go over what interference is with your parents, the parents of the kids, and sign the contract. So what is interference? So remember, so if you think about it, look at this triangle here. What's going on? There's a solution to the long-term challenge. There's skills the kids have or want to attain, and there's rules. There's the description of a long-term challenge. And as a manager, you can work with the kids on skills. You could work with the kids on rules, understanding the requirements of the problem. But as a team manager, you cannot contribute to the solution. Now, in this roadmap document are a bunch of other examples, but I think it will go through a few right here. So first is safety. If you see something that's unsafe, someone's swinging a hammer in an unsafe way, a kid says that I want to weld, is it okay to say to stop that? Yes, safety wins over everything. Anyway, do we have a question, or someone took themselves off mute? I'm going to put this person back on mute. There we go. At the end of this, I'll see if there's questions. Right, so safety. If you see something going that's unsafe, you can stop it. The example in the book, if the team wants to weld, and that's beyond your scope, which I think it may be, it's beyond mine, you can say, that sounds dangerous. What else can you do? You can't give an answer, but you could say no to something you feel is unsafe. Can you help manage the team's time? Yes, they don't bring their time onto the stage. That's not part of the solution. You could coach them on project management. Can you facilitate the team's understanding of the challenge and rules? Yes, that's an area where you could participate with them. If the team gives you a shopping list, can you go buy the items for them? Yes, you can, because the team is specifying what they want to get, and they have to do it so you can just follow their instructions. If something's ambiguous, you cannot make a decision for them. Can you choose a resource to help solve the challenge? Can you say, hey, I think duct tape is better than nails? The answer is no, because that's contributing to the solution. Can you give an opinion on something as simple as color? It's kind of funny. I remember one of the kids on my team gave me two things and said, hey, Coach Gil, which one do you think looks better? And I said, are you trying to trick me in interference? I think that would be a good question for the team. So if they're asking you questions that are related to the solution, just redirect back to the team. And then can you teach the team new skills and show them how to make something? And the answer is yes. If they say, we want to know how to join wood together, we want to know how to join 2x4s, you can say, all right, let's have a workshop in joining 2x4s together. You could use glue, you could use nails, you could use wood screws, you can do one, you could show them, you give them a skill, but anything that you do cannot go into the solution. So let me just pause for a moment and see if there's questions about this interesting and very key idea of interference. So a couple people are off mute. I don't know if you did that intentionally. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm going to be managing a Rising Stars team of first graders. So I think most of this so far will apply to all the age groups, but are there things that are specific for, or is this aimed at a specific level, I guess?
Yeah, so is it the same for Rising Stars? And so far, yes. I think the a few things are a little bit different, like the dollar limit and there's some other rules that are slightly different, but this idea of interference, the idea of someone that's not a team member, brother, sister, parent, coach, contributing to the solution is the same for all. Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
Any other? Hey, that's great. You guys can. I could unmute all. If you guys, anybody want to? Any other questions? You could take yourself off mute or raise your hand. So I would encourage you. There's this resource, Rules of the Road. There's a whole chapter on interference. It's a good one to read, and there's an interference quiz, kind of like this one, and it helps illustrate what's interference and what isn't. All right, so the next topic is volunteering. I just like to say for the in addition to the team managers and the appraiser, the entire Lexington program is run by volunteers. You could do any job that's interesting to you. What are the jobs? Each item on the schedule could use a little help. There could be big ones and small ones, and there's some roles on our website. So we'll take a look at those. But if you like DI, there's always more to do. So resource reviews. So I think there's really two key resources that will help you in DI. The first is our own local website. It's maintained by our director and our own webmaster. We update the schedule. There's some good templates on it, some resources. And the other fantastic bit of information is the roadmap. We do, if we remember, post things to Facebook. We used to tweet. We don't do that much anymore. We do have these accounts. They may get more active, but the key is really our own website and the roadmap document. So let's take a look at those. So it's lexdi.org, and the first thing you can see there's a schedule page, and this really gives a good overview of what's going on, right? So right now we're doing the team manager training, right? Enrollment's open through the 30th. There are 2 more trainings available, right? There's one on November 2nd, and there's also one on January 11th. So I would encourage you, in addition to this, to go there. The information is on the state site, the MADI DI, and there's additional training. This is one guy's opinion and ideas on training, and it's hopefully a good kickstart in advance of these, but the state does a great job. The state program does a great job of providing additional training. And these are, what else is going on? There's, here's the appraiser trainings. There's the actual tournament for this year and the state tournament. And we'll also have a celebration dinner afterwards. And I think there's one more I'd like to point out, which is there's an informal tea. It'll be at Charles's place. It's November 10th, 7 to 8:30. Show up, ask questions, and it's a great way to, once you've started some things, there'll be questions. It's a great way to get support. The other thing I'd like to show you here on the schedule is the resources. And in addition to, and it's this links section right here. So if you remember, for one thing, it's this lexdi.org. It's in the training materials, which, right, the website's right there. This will be, but here's the national team organization, and here's the Massachusetts. So this is a good one-stop shop to go. There's a pointer to the challenges. There's a pointer to instant challenges. There's other information. And one I'd like to point out is this template for list of meetings, because this is a valuable tool for organizing your team. Someone sent one around that was in a Google Doc. That looks good too. But here's the general idea, which is whenever you meet, most teams meet once a week. Teams were formed around a meeting time, and you could see this one was Saturday in the afternoon. You know, put down the start and end times, put down all the dates you're meeting, put down when the holidays are, and you'll find that, you know, there's really only 12 meetings, depending when you start. So there may not, and the number of holidays. And I find it's good to take a look at this, and at the beginning of each meeting, see how many are left, and at the end of each meeting, cross one out. And this gives the kids a good sense for how much time is left. And they'll say, oh, there's plenty here. But you know, when it comes to February and they see, uh-oh, there's only 2 more times, that's when things really get going. And I guess the other thing I'd like to point out is people are always looking for ideas for instant challenges. We have some here on the website, and then there's also some in the roadmap document. So let's take a look at that roadmap document. This is something that that you have access to once you get your team number, and it's really I don't know if you could see here, it's 155 pages of information. So this is a very excellent source of general information. You can see guiding your team. It has a list of instant challenges here. Here's the section on interference. It talks about skills in general, facilitation, and so forth. So I recommend you take this book, skim through it, and use it. It even says how to, you know, what the agenda should be and how you can divide your time. So those are some resources that are available. So let me go back and see if let me pause and see if anybody is raising their hand or if there's any questions. Aha, Steve Wang. Let me try to unmute you here. Okay, Steve.
Hi, Gil. Thanks for introduction. You share a lot of material and information with us. I wonder whether you will share your deck with us.
I will indeed share the deck. One guess where it's going to go on the LexDI website. I will give it a slight refresh, but it's here's the one from last year, and this one will appear here shortly.
Okay,
great.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So if there's no further questions, we'll continue. All right. So as a new team, this is probably one of the hardest things to do, picking a challenge. There are these 6 different categories of challenges. They're located on the national site. And in picking these, well, let's just again take a look at these resources. I think part of being part of DI is just knowing where things are. So if we go to the national website, notice I went off of our own here. There's a section of team challenges, and there's a section of previews. And here it describes each challenge, points of interest, and gives a video. So you can use these materials to help your kids, the team, select one. And what I would do, I guess my biggest tip is 2 things. One is virtually every challenge has something for everybody. So if there's one in fine arts, which is really focused on performance, there's still an opportunity to build sets. The technical challenge, you know, where you're building a structure to hold weight, still has a story and a performance in it. So as you go through these, you know, that's something to emphasize to the kids, that if they like something, they can, you know, there is something for them in each. And each challenge also has 2 team choice elements. So they have some requirements, like build a structure, and a requirement may be put on a play or have a skit about something. But they also say there's 2 team choice elements, which means do whatever you want. And in that do whatever you want, you know, if one, if some people really have their heart set on one piece of a challenge and the team selects another, they can take the part they want to do and make it a team choice element. So, I think I see there's another question here. And for some reason, I see Steve has raised his hand, but I am not able to unmute him. So hopefully, oh, there we go.
No, I don't.
Yep. Do you have another question?
No, I don't. I don't know.
Oh, I guess you have to unraise your hand.
Okay.
All right. Great. Now here's another tip, which is when you pick your challenge, do it in one session. Okay, maybe two, but I've seen teams, and it breaks my heart, that spend 2, 3, 4, even 5 of their sessions trying to pick a challenge, and that really it's hard on the kids, you know, where they're just trying to, where they're digging in, they're trying to keep their position, and really the best thing is to just do it quickly, pick one, and then just start working on the results. Okay. So how do you keep a bunch of kids on task, right? So you pick your challenge, you read it together as a group over a few sessions, you brainstorm some ideas, and you start to get to work on tasks. And there's this, how do you keep them on track where you know what they have to do, you work on the highest priority item first, at a glance you can see the status, and there's this theme of improvement. And actually, I'm in the, my business, my profession is software, and there's a thing called Agile Project Management. And it took me a while to connect the two. And once I did, I found this worked extremely well. So as part of this training, and I don't think they do this at the state level, I'd like to share how I do Agile Project Management for Destination a Lot Imagination. And so what's the principle? It's really, you know, like any project, it's taking the work, visualizing it, splitting it into small pieces, writing each task on a card, and putting it on the wall. And also, you want to limit works in progress. You want to kind of help the kids not start 10 things and not finish any. You know, if they start something, you want to try to emphasize that they finish what they start. So what it's really about, sticky notes on a board or a wall, and there are these 3 columns: to do, in progress, and done. In the beginning, everything is to do, and as they do work, they get to move it forward. And at first, you might operate the board, but eventually, they get to operate the board, and they'll take pleasure in moving things to the right. I had a nice big wall in my basement, and this is what ours look like. It's probably a little hard to read, so this is what's on there. So here's the to-do, in progress, and done, 3 simple columns. And as a team, we brainstorm what are the major deliverables. So this is a good way to get them to start to understand what the problem is. And this one was the technical challenge of building a structure. It said you also had to provide a story, and there was a prop. And actually, these major deliverables are also in, if you look at the problem description and the number of points you get for each activity, they're really laid out right there. And here they are. Here's team choice element 1 and team choice element 2. You know, the supplies are easy. You know, this was 8.5 by 11 paper, 3 by 3 Post-its, some tape, a Sharpie, some markers. You can see the kids put a little smile face on it. It doesn't have to be a wall. Some teams that would have their meetings in, let's say, the dining room had a piece of poster board, and they just used small stickies on it. But you know, people who adopted this found it useful. There are these things called swim lanes. So, you know, for each thing, they move across in groups like that. Why are they called swim lanes? Kind of looks like a pool. And then what can you tell about our project just by looking at this? You could see that, I'll give you a moment to think about it, but you could see that, well, in the prop and costume, that nothing's done. There's some progress on the story, and then people haven't thought at all about the team choice element. So you could, at the beginning say, hey, you've only completed one task on the structure. There's one in progress. Do you think that'll do it? No? What else do you have to do? So this I find is a great way to engage the kids in the discussion. Let me check if any hands are up. Okay. And the last thing, with limiting work in progress. For this team, we kind of agreed that 3 things should be in progress. I think there were 6, so it was 3 groups of 2. And what we would do, we'd put a little X on a Post-it. We'll kind of zoom in here. We put a little X on a Post-it, and those were the things we'd focus on and try to get to done. So I think that this was an excellent tool that helped us go forward. Another Agile principle, which I think is really important for destination imagination, is you want the kids to learn as fast as possible. So I think it's about small iterations, experiment, and then having retrospectives, having some time to reflect. So you can reflect on, how did this meeting go? How did this activity go? How did an instant challenge go? And you could just think of these, continue, stop, start. What worked well that we want to do again? What did not work that we should stop? And what we should try. So something we could start. I want to have a comment about globals. I think, globals are expensive, right? They're at least $2,500 per team member. And I just want to say that teams are not required to go to globals if they qualify, right? There's a regional tournament. If teams do well in the regional, I think they take the top 1 or 2 teams per category. You then could participate in the states. And then again, the top teams from the states go to the global. So it's not that easy, but we've had a few teams do it recently. But it's not a requirement. It's okay to say, you know what, we went to states, we did well at states, and that's good enough. So it's really up to the discretion of the team and the team manager. That said, given we have enough money in our budget, the LexDI program could provide up to $2,000 per team. And on our website, we have a full policy that discusses this. All right, so this is the tip section. So these are just different ideas from myself and that I've cultivated from other managers. I have 2 pages I'd like to share with you. I think the first is the first few meetings matter. And I think it's best to insist on good behavior, especially during the first few meetings. If the first few meetings are wild, then the kids will think it's okay to be wild. So really, insist that kids do well. And if you need to enlist the help of other parents, that's okay to do. I think a good instant challenge is to brainstorm a code of conduct. So the brainstorm is get up a big pad of paper, if you have a whiteboard or giant, Post-it note, flip chart, and the challenge is let's write down as many ideas as we can, as quickly as possible, on how we want to conduct ourselves. And you could give some examples if you want, like, is it okay to talk while somebody else is talking? And then once you have that brainstorm, you could go back and say, okay, of this list we generated fast, which ones do we like and which ones do we want to hold for our meeting? So this is a good way to have the kids input to the process and have them, come up with a list, and then, keep this in a visible place. So if the behavior does not meet the code of conduct, you can refer back to it. Another is establishing a norm of positive and productive comments. just to, if kids might not always be have positive comments, and you could just remind them that here in DI, our comments should be positive and productive. Don't do what I'm doing right now, which is just talking to the team. Their minds wander. So you could give them a little bit of instruction, but move them on to an activity. I found long speeches to little kids don't go well. If they seem to be stuck on part of the solution, part of the long-term team challenge, you could say, hey, let's have an instant challenge and just brainstorm ideas. And again, it's okay, let's write as many ideas as we can, brainstorm. No idea is bad. We're going for volume, and try to think of ways for the solution. Especially for the younger kids and Rising Stars coaches, this might be a good one. For the instant challenge, one of them is, given spaghetti and marshmallows, build a tower as tall as you can within 4 minutes. It's great to just have, when the kids arrive, a bin of spaghetti and a small bowl of marshmallows, and say, hey, your activity is to use the spaghetti and marshmallows, and you could, either as a group or individually, just build. It's a good way for them to get used to the materials. I also as a coach, it's good to prepare ahead of time to say, this is what I want to cover, this is what I want to go over. For example, I'll start with an instant challenge. I'll start with spaghetti, and then I'll have an instant challenge. Then we'll read the requirements together, and then we'll start to build something. But have that agenda, kind of put the time for each, but have an agenda that's too long, but have it in priority order, because that way you won't run out of things to do, especially in the first meetings, and there'll always be another activity that you could move the kids into. More tips. So at the end, the place may be messy, and either you as an adult could clean up, you could have the other parents clean up, or you could make it a game and you say, okay, kids, time to clean up, time to put the materials in the bins, whatever it is, and make it a game. Say, I'm gonna time you, and then you could see each time, see if they could beat their last time. And that's a way for them to take responsibility, and for you not to clean up. I find the requirements, reading these long documents is kind of hard. The kids, so what we do is we read it together over several meetings and put the bullet points on a flip chart. And I found that's worked well. Some managers really like to use snacks. It's a good break, and it's a time where the group can just talk and be social and brainstorm. For supplies in this area, Home Depot is good, same as Lowe's. There's Michael's nearby, and Joanne Fabrics and Crafts has good material. I think in the book, in the roadmap, sometimes it says, here's a shopping list of things to get ahead of time. I would not do that. I would really, get things kind of just in time, get just what you need for the instant challenge, have the kids decide what they want to get, and, have them direct you what they want to get for the long-term team challenge. And finally, there's this, if the rules are ambiguous, there's this saying in DI, which I kind of like, and that if it doesn't say you can't, then you can. And that's a good one for the, that's a good guiding principle. So when we've had this live, I would break you up into groups and do an instant challenge. For a lot of new managers, you say, what is an instant challenge? So, and it's really this. So you can imagine what you do is you have instructions and you read it to the kids. So it's really, you say, kids, we're going to do an instant combo challenges. We're going to brainstorm combo animals, and that's made of a combination of 2 or more different animals. In 2.5 minutes, you can organize your group, brainstorm as many combo animals as you can, and select the most creative one, report to the whole group. The number of combo animals in your list, you get 10 points for each, and the most creative one, you get 20 more points. So we let it go, we run, and at the end we ask, hey, what worked, what didn't work, what should we try again? You can even discuss with the rules a little bit. You could say, hey, how long did it take you to choose your most creative combo animal? Okay, it's worth only 20 points. Would it have been easier to brainstorm, a kangaroo turtle, to come up with just a few more combo animals? So you get, and another thing is, with 2.5 minutes, did they ask the timekeeper? Did they ask how much time is left? And so, by practicing instant challenges, that's how when they arrive at the tournament, they'll be able to do that. Okay, just a few more things. If you have the challenge that has a structure, we have 2 structure testers floating around. So let me or Charles know if you need one. A little more housekeeping. So each manager needs to fill out a query form and send it to Lexington Community Education. You can, using your team number, you can get the problem description and that great roadmaps document. And remember, find an appraiser for your team. Again, the next meeting is on November 10th. There's a manager's tea. Look on the schedule for location. And finally, I'd just like to conclude with this before opening it up to further Q&A. So the first thing I think is that DI, I call it messy and rewarding. It's definitely not a linear project. It's sometimes not very orderly, but I find it very rewarding, and the kids seem to really get a lot out of it. So if it is a bit messy and chaotic at times, don't worry, that's actually normal. Another thing as a manager, you may get a little concerned that they might not be progressing on the team challenge as quickly as you think they might. It turns out most of the work does get done in the last few meetings. That's an observation. And this is my hat. The appraisers at tournaments wear a hat. I've got this one, and I've got this button right up here in the front that someone gave me, which I think is awesome. It says, I'm a great DI team manager. It's not my problem. Right? So what does that mean? It's not my problem. It's really a challenge for the kids to solve. And if they don't do well and they fail, in a sense, if they make mistakes, this is a great program for them to learn. If you make a mistake on your math exam, that might not be great, but here it's a awesome way to experiment and to learn. So that brings me to my very last point, which I want to end on, which is winning versus journey. So, in DI, it really, what you emphasize is up to you as a team manager. Some team managers are very competitive and want to focus on the scores, and if you do, that's fine. But I think that this is a program where you could really focus on the journey, on the learning, on the experimentation, and really just being able to get up there and present, being able to show up at states and to spend those 8 minutes presenting the solution really is what it's about. So I'd like to conclude with that and see if anyone else has any questions. Okay, we've got one here. Okay, I see Seema you have your hand raised. Oh, there we go.
Yes, yeah. So regarding picking up instant challenge, so I can go to the site and pick up any challenge that suits for our kids. Is that how it goes? Because I'm not very clear, because I have all third graders. So is it based on the age, or how is it?
Yeah, I think it's, read them and see what's good what suits you well. You know, in the rules of the road, there's a bunch. On the website, there's a bunch, and they really, I think, they are well suited for a variety of ages. And what changes is the sophistication of their answer. One more thing on instant challenges, there's kind of a few different types. There's one that's just about a performance. There's others that it's all about building something. And there's others that's kind of a performance with props. So there are those three flavors, and I would try to you know, have a variety of those as you select them for your team.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, in that case, I'd like to thank you for joining me and being my first studio audience. If there's questions, there's the email from the town on the town website, and then also we have our manager's tea in November. All right, so thank you very much, and I'll conclude the broadcast. Have a great night.
Good night.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Very welcome.